Thanks everyone for being patient. All right, marketing fundamentals. Well, I am going to share my screen, it looks like, and we can get started. Again, thank you for being patient. All right, so I am so excited to talk to all of you about marketing principles. And that was something when looking at the different courses that you're all taking, and something that I have maybe selfishly always wondered how to put a class together on principles. What are principles of marketing? Once you're in a career for so long, sometimes the principles, even though they're worked into your muscles, think about how a job that you've done really well in the past, maybe you know how to either help with ticketing or helping with customer service, and it just becomes like muscle memory. It's the same thing when you've been in marketing for a while and school seems a little further away. So I got to take a little bit of marketing 101 for me. But today my intention for this 30 to 40 minutes that we have together is really hopefully setting you up for the rest of the program. When I think about marketing principles, not just 101 and going over those details, but really giving you all something to think about, that no matter what marketing piece you're working on and no matter what role you're serving, whether you're a designer, a writer, you're on the social media, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, or whatever you're working with, there will be something that you can take away from this. So that's my goal. Now, first, to introduce myself, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Emily Bezak. I work at the University of Pittsburgh with RJ. But before that, I obviously live in Pittsburgh now, didn't grow up around here. I'm from the rural central area of our state. But I came to Pittsburgh in 2006 to be a journalist. And as my slide says, it totally happened in kind of not the most straightforward way. Like I said, I started as a journalism major, and what I did in the early stages of my career, I was able to see that there are other ways to write and tell stories than necessarily journalism. And that actually, got me into the business world. I switched my major halfway through my program, and also got my MBA at Pitt. But side notes, things that I like to do, bake, and I also, for my free time, I spend as much time as possible with my 2 English bulldogs who are snoring in the room next door. So hopefully you will get a sampling of their music. That is what I work to. And then my husband, Jeff. Career highlights, like I said, I work at Pitt. I'm a communications manager in the Office of Research, and actually taught in the school Pitt Business for a year prior to that. Communications, another synonym for marketing sometimes. But communications, a lot of the things that I focus on are more digital, but there's also some print and some long form content that's being written. Immediately prior to my time at Pitt, I was a contracted digital marketing project manager at Wesco, which is based here in Pittsburgh, and led a small but scrappy team managing the digital marketing, so website, social media, and that sort of thing. And where all of this kind of came for me, I have been a freelance writer since 2008. So not only did I see in journalism that there were other ways that I could use my writing skills, and really kind of turn that into a side business. And I started it in my dorm room, and it just kind of grew from there. But so that's a little bit about me. And I also just want to share here my skills and expertise, where my perspective is coming from, talking about principles of marketing. I wanted to show in a gigantic ball, project management is something that kind of happened naturally in my career. I always wanted to be a writer, but project management was something that I could bring to the table, and that was that was different. And so that was something that throughout my career, no matter what my role was, I leaned into that and and tried to refine that, and make sure that coordinating all the different things in marketing that are going at once, whether it's ads, social media, the website being launched, a direct mail to 20,000 people, all at the same time. Those are things that that I have found the most success in. So mostly a lot of my skill set comes from project management, but then there's also a lot of good stuff from content and social media. And then I put this little gray bubble right here, and that's the ninja. And it's kind of a joke, but I was trying to figure out how to say the other things that marketers do. So in marketing, I know from hearing that a lot of you are students, and potentially marketing students specifically. And when I entered into marketing, it was all, are you a generalist? Do you do everything, or do you specialize in one thing? And a lot of the roles that I saw were mostly generalists. And that's where the ninja comes in. So I can design and analyze data and all of those things. So just trying to put that in the bucket, but you'll see that in job descriptions too, a lot for marketing, and sure you might even have seen them already. So, oh, I just noticed that in the chat. Oh, thanks, RJ. RJ's running my chat. Okay. All right. So a lot of my experience comes from project management. Doesn't sound nearly as flashy as maybe saying branding or, designing big installations or big fancy billboards that you see on the street, but it might not be sexy, but it's something that that is really important in marketing. So, all right. So to get us moving, I want to start just activating the chat a little bit. Kind of marketing do you like? And feel free to just whatever you want to say in the chat. What kind of marketing speaks to you, or a brand or a company? I'd be really interested to hear and see what kind of marketing speaks to you, because everybody kind of has different preferences, different things that they purchase. So just curious to see, feel free to add that. Lego. Sweet Swiss Army knife. Thank you, RJ. Lego. Clean and crisp designs or logos that aren't busy. Sophia, excellent. Love that. Stillers. Companies that seem to project a message of listening to their consumer base and communities. Oh, good. Okay, Soren, I believe. Yes. So message of listening to their consumer base. So you'll see a lot in their communities. So you'll see a lot. We listened. We took a survey and we listened, and these are the things that we're changing. Seeing a lot of messaging like that. Yes. Oh, Jolene. I worked for a water wastewater engineering firm for 14 plus years, so I'm very familiar with that industry. I was an admin assistant, but did a lot of their marketing. Wow. Okay. Admin assistant, also doing marketing and graphic design. That, Jolene, hats off to you. I've heard that before, and that's amazing. But yeah, so marketing and graphic design. Are there any construction industry. Okay. So, okay, I see we're not all logged in, but that's okay. Construction industry, seeing some ads in the construction industry. I know for those of you, I hope that you're all local to Pittsburgh, but because I have a few examples later, but there is a intersection right before you get onto the Parkway East in Squirrel Hill, and there's some construction happening on, I believe it's Murray Avenue, right at that intersection. And they have these cute little quirky signs that say, you know, in progress, or like, we're still open, and they'll have little jokes that are fun. Oh, Deanna, English technical writing, but fell for graphic design. Wow. Awesome, Deanna. That's awesome. Cool. So we have a lot of perspectives. I wanted to share just quickly a few of my favorites, two of them, just as an example. So one of my favorite campaigns of all time, and I do remember it very vividly, and it was a long time ago, I realized, but T-Mobile announced over the Super Bowl that they were break up with your cell phone carrier, break up with you know, the contract, come to T-Mobile. But it was put in a way where they actually gave you a picture of a breakup letter to your carrier. And that was something that, I mean, I did it pretty quickly because it was really good ad, but the way that it was made so simple, they were able to create something for the exact audience they're looking to capture. So not only was it fun because, hey, I wrote a breakup letter to this carrier that is giving me problems for whatever reason. People shared it on social media. And then that campaign, that idea of a breakup letter with your carrier just kind of naturally happened through a lot of social media, coverage of social media, and then also their competitors heard about it in a very specific way, I'm sure, with all of these breakup letters coming from T-Mobile. So a little bit of a baller move, I would say, very bold. They're not shying away from it. I would say that they're creative is enough to explain that they're not shying away from it. We want to break up with this carrier. And then you were able to join T-Mobile. There was also, I believe at the time, a really good deal for an iPhone, whatever iPhone was in existence at that time. So this was a campaign that I specifically loved. Oh yeah, signs have a lot of puns in Squirrel Hill. Yes, Valerie. Wire cutter, Savannah, cool. I don't know anything about wire cutter, actually. Feel free to keep adding to the chat. I love to respond in the moment. Another campaign, I particularly like ones that are a little punchy and a little funny, and may even call out something that is a problem. So 2015, Reese's was getting a lot of complaints over their ugly trees. I think it was trending on social media. And I remember the shape of the tree, actually, the points on the side weren't as pronounced as they were previously. And there was an uproar, and Reese's responded with "all trees are beautiful" and created a social media, just took part in the conversation, even though they were unpopular for that decision. There was a lot of chatter about it, but called it out, and in a very simple and effective way. Something that has also happened since then, since this was 2015, I'm sure it happens pretty much every year, maybe, kind of like the Starbucks holiday cups. But the Hershey Kisses, if any of you remember 2020, they had knocked off those little points on the Hershey Kisses. And that was another thing that blew up on social media. And the next year, the points were added back on. So just calling a spade, that's kind of my jam with marketing. All right. But, all right. Okay. So let's get to the real meat of what we're going to be talking about. And I think principles of marketing, and I put a lot of thought. Part of my process is just thinking. And what it comes down to is questions. Principles of marketing equals questions. And when you find yourself in a situation where someone is requesting a marketing item, a marketing thing, questions guide the process. They can also remind folks, oh, yeah, that's a great question. And it makes the marketing better. So want to talk to that specifically with just principles of marketing. And now, judging from the chat, I noticed there are some seasoned folks here too. So I'll be able to speak to that as well, per my earlier comment. So marketing principles, my first question that coming across the table. What is this thing? What is the thing that we're marketing? Because, and I provided a list of common things. So an event, we're promoting an event. Service, product, the brand, you know, rolling out a new logo and a new set of colors and textures and way of speaking. That is a whole effort, not just one, hey, here's our logo. So is it cross-selling something to an audience that's not familiar with us? Is it an initiative or program that is internal? Or the best, if you think of Don Draper and Mad Men, the best thing that you can do in marketing is say it's new. So new XYZ, new thing, new and improved, also kind of goes with the new brand. But trying to figure out what the thing is being asked of you. Sometimes you'll get, oh, this is an event. And by asking that question, okay, so this event, who's coming, who's talking, why is this important? Those kinds of questions will help not only make the marketing better, but it will also prevent you or your team from turning into what I've heard in the industry, kind of a FedEx order fulfiller. Okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, let's keep moving. It helps to ask these questions to make sure that what out of all of these things, and this visual here is just, those are just like the top websites in 2022 from Statistia. And I just use that as an example, as oftentimes when you're in marketing, the people requesting marketing aren't necessarily in marketing or know all the ins and outs. Sometimes it looks like this, and asking what is it is really important to that process. Because then if you're not clear on what it is you're marketing, you could put ads behind it, you could drive social media, you can create as many blog posts as possible, but if that's not clear, that's kind of like one of those stop non-starters. And I give an example. Oftentimes in marketing, your request will come through either a form or an email or in a meeting. And it's really hard to say, for example, like I use this example often. This is a tape dispenser that is a French bulldog. And you're not going to get a tape dispenser French bulldog. It's cool to look at every time you market something. But by saying things like, okay, this product that you're giving me to market doesn't have a lid or doesn't have the tape in it, it's really hard to clarify that. So starting the conversation with just, what is this thing we're doing? Can help you get more information, even before saying, okay, we need a flyer, we need XYZ, we need to go on social media, we need to have a bunch of ads go out about this thing. First, what is it? And this list will hopefully help you too. All right, my next, who needs it? So very simple, seems, okay, who's getting this thing? Once you've decided, okay, this French Bulldog tape dispenser marketing project, who needs this thing? Now, of course, the instinct is everybody needs this thing, right? But our job as marketers is to make sure that the right people are getting the right thing, because in the end, that is what makes a good brand. So not just necessarily caring about, okay, let's spread it wide and hope for the best. If you can narrow it down even at all from internal and external, or for example, where is this list coming from? If this thing is an email, are they users? Are they subscribers to an email list? Or are they customers that have a long purchasing history? That information is really helpful in kind of refining that and also meeting your goals. So as a marketer, making sure that you can meet your goals also helps. So asking these questions can help. And then I put down here, and just to differentiate business to business and business to consumer. Yes, we're all people, people to people. But that differentiation, that was something that I have found a lot of differences in how marketing is approached and how marketing gets done between B2B and B2C. I'd say most of my experiences with B2B and kind of user base, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, business to business, you're not sending an email to a building, you're not sending it to a logo, you're sending it to people. But when you differentiate between, saying, a business or a consumer, that kind of gives you a little bit of a perspective on that customer that might affect maybe the design or the timing, or it could affect anything. So for example, think business to business, I'm sending an email. It would be helpful to send an email during business hours. Seems simple, but that's just one thing that will help. Business to consumer, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're checking their emails 24/7. But those kinds of rules are what kind of change in marketing a lot too. So saying business to business, do it during business hours. What are business hours right now? With hybrid work and remote work, some in the office, setting flexible schedules. Business hours are still kind of like, we're not sure. So that makes an impact on a typical business to business kind of marketing offering that you'd be offering from someone who's asking. So who needs it is a very basic question, but if you can get it further filtered down, that can also help the performance of your marketing piece. And in the end, the person that's requesting may not have any skin in the game as far as, I want to meet goals, I want to get sales, or I want this many clicks. But if it's, against the benchmark or something like that, it is in their best interest to narrow down the target audience. Because once you narrow it down to, hey, maybe you're getting into a user database, well, that's when you can create really personalized messages that are, hey, users that do this, or users that are doing things that we like them to do and we want them to keep doing these things. Because that sure narrows down your reach and impressions, but ultimately it would help your click-through rate, engagement rate, and hopefully conversions. So actual sales, whatever you want them to do, we got more of the right people to do the thing that you wanted to do. And that's always nice. Let's see, where will it be? Now, these are questions that maybe they haven't thought about. They, as in, as in your requester that is saying, hey, we have this event that's coming up, we need some marketing support, or hey, this new product is launching, we need marketing support. Where will it be? Will might be more of a marketing thing to own, but it's always helpful to say, where do you expect to see this? What do you think? Especially right at the onset of a project, because that can help you determine, okay, how much more do we need to work on refining the request before we move forward? Again, project management embedded in my brain forever. I will write content, I can analyze data, but as soon as we're talking about a marketing thing, my project management hat goes on. And something that is more and more often put into job descriptions. So where will it be? Where do you expect it to be? Online and print. If you're thinking both, how are we, spacing this information out? Because more times than not, I will say that the print side of things takes a lot longer than the online or web experience. And often that print piece is really what's going to drive all the other tactics. Tactics being, we're going to have a microsite, we're going to have landing pages that drive to this. We're going to create a lead magnet, or let's put a piece in our newsletter. Let's send a separate email. All of those things kind of hinge usually on the initial piece, which is the flyer that's saying, hey, this new feature on our product is really cool. So there are, again, great little list of things. Online could mean those items. It could mean a zillion more things depending on the company that you're working for. They might be much more heavily invested in print or in digital. They might have affiliate advertising partners that they can work with for online. But in general, where will it be? Let's talk about online, let's talk about print, and let's talk about how they kind of intermingle or drive and accelerate marketing activities. And so where will it be? That also plays into formatting. It plays into the content. Sorry about that. Henry. The dogs are awake. Yes, that is Henry. If you heard me chuckle, did not like that. Get back. So examples of where will it be and print. So I've had where it comes through as we need this website, for example. Okay, we can certainly help with the website. How are we driving traffic to that website? We can certainly post on social media. Henry. Sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. Hello, buddy. Apologies. So, yeah, I completely lost what I was saying here. So if we have more questions about where will it be, feel free to put them in the chat for afterwards. But in general, I think where I'm getting at is online and print, they're completely different specs for a designer or a writer. They're completely different skill sets sometimes. Sometimes there's overlap. So it just helps you understand kind of what you need to do as the marketer to launch, and also to those things that need to be considered. So we designed this as a flyer to be printed. How do we get this up online? How do we promote it on social media? Asking those questions ahead of time will help plan a more integrated approach, as opposed to oh, now that we have this, let's create another request and another ask. Being proactive can save. And my last, I think this is my last question I ask is, why now? Because more times than not, the request that's coming in, you're going to ask, when do you want this? Yesterday. Or do you want this? Hey, maybe you have a launch date and you hear the launch date and the plans and you're just like, oh, I don't know how this is going to happen. Or, you know what? Here's our plan. Here's what we're doing. And we want to do this. No, marketing is really where those decisions can be best made. So, because what's happening when we say why now is think about what's going on in the world. And I just have a screenshot of obscene number. This isn't my phone, but obscene numbers of notifications, whether you're Facebook or your Instagram or you're in TikTok or you use Gmail, you're in WhatsApp instead of messages, whatever tools you're using, the more notifications, the more competition that you have as a marketer when you're sharing something. So that's always something in the back of my mind. Okay, where will this fall in this person's day? Is now the right time to tell them? Or do we have some wiggle room on, the launch date of this new product? Another thing to think about, again, all focusing on that audience, focusing on the list of who wants to hear about this. Once we get really refined on who, we can answer these questions a lot better too. But what else are you promoting to this audience? So does it mean that we would add another website, or maybe we can incorporate it into that campaign in some way instead of creating a new piece or a new tactic? That can be helpful. Thinking about, okay, so they're going to hear about our newsletter is going to hit them this day. What's the next? Where would this fit in to that journey? And finally, is what you're wanting to market ready? Ultimately, that is a big question. And sometimes it comes, I believe the last Momentum program, I don't know if Carlos is teaching again, but I remember we were talking specifically about readiness. And sometimes I've been in the agency seat and I've been in the client-facing roles where I'm saying, this isn't ready to go. This product doesn't have a lid. How do we get there? So these questions hopefully will help guide a lot of those, being those proactive. So it's a lot. My dogs do love marketing, yes. So yeah, it's a lot of questions. Seems a little out of box, but it really comes down to who, what, where, and why. First thing that you learn when you're writing something. And marketing is very similar in that way. But these are specific questions and how I've asked them that have helped move a project closer to being complete quicker, or also to infuse some other ideas that either the team I'm working on has. Hey, you're asking for a flyer, but what if we did these things? If you're not getting those conversations going in your marketing meetings, that's something that designers and developers and creatives love. So at any point, if you can inject an idea or, hey, let's try this thing, that is a great way to not only build team rapport, but also to make the marketing more exciting. And I'm always for marketing being exciting, even planning it. Yeah, dogs do love marketing. I've actually joked a few times at the beginning of the pandemic, and not so much now, but I used to do meetings with one bulldog sitting on each foot of each of my feet. And it really was the case sometimes because they were working right with me and I consider them my editors. So whenever I think of requesting something, of marketing. Now that I'm kind of on the other side, I'm requesting things of marketing or I'm writing something. I just picture a bulldog's angry face or unimpressed face, and there's usually an edit there. So, all right, well, I believe that was all that I had, but I'm really interested. I wanted to make sure that we had time for questions, especially on a topic as principles of marketing or fundamentals or 101. Anything that I didn't cover super clearly or have specific questions on it, I'd be more than happy to answer any of them.
So you're welcome to drop your questions in the chat, or if you would like to turn your camera on and put a face to the name, that too is fine. Looks like Sophia's up with the first question. She's asking, what are the main differences between an internal versus external audience? Great question, Sophia.
Yes, great question. And I had put that on the slide. That's something that an internal audience, so on the requester side, so that would be people that you work with, your immediate team, to tell them maybe about a thing. So sometimes it gets forgotten. You're launching this big thing, this new product is coming out, or this new event is coming, but you didn't tell anybody internally. So they didn't tell their sales reps, or they didn't tell their partners in product that this is something that's launching. So sometimes you would get a request to market internally so that you can not only get support from within the organization, but they can share it on social media if the event is live and public and those kinds of things, to help drive traffic or to just make people aware of what you're doing. External audience, I would think anything that you would put publicly. If you don't feel comfortable putting it public, then don't put it externally. But an external audience would be customers, media, anybody outside of your team or from your organization. Now, sometimes that can be a little bit complicated. Lots of businesses are set up to have different teams and different, you hear matrix organizations. Internal can have a lot of subsegments, just like external can. But the main difference between the two that I see is it helping? So for example, at Pitt, is it helping Pitt people market this event better? Or is it helping us get more Pitt people or external people to do a thing? So I hope that helps. But that will also drive channels that you choose. So creating a whole big video for an internal audience is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can just create some different things to consider with your marketing. If this is going to an internal audience, who from HR, who from the area that this product is supporting needs to know, what do they prefer, as opposed to externally, that's going to be on social media, more likely going to be front page of the website, those kinds of things. Good question. That answered that. Sure.
We've got a decent amount of time. We've got 11 minutes, so this would be a great question or a great time for additional questions or related to Emily's presentation or related to the industry or anything you have on your mind. Well, I've got one for you, Emily.
Okay.
And I think this applies to all of us. How do you determine the characteristics of an audience? So when you're doing your marketing work, how do you kind of get into the headspace, or how do you describe the people that you want to communicate to. I'm leading to personas, basically.
Yes.
How do you build a persona?
How do I build a persona? So that's a great question. Honestly, I try to think if there's anybody in my internal universe, anybody in my network that has a similar job or has a similar, might have a need for this particular thing. For example, specifically in my role, working with researchers, and this is something that is close to my heart, my best friend, her whole life, she knew she was going to do research in academia. So I frequently think, hey, would Jen come to this thing? Would Jen do this thing? Would she know what to do if this was the way that it was presented? And I try to put myself in their shoes. But also beyond that, a lot of personas can start with just basic research, knowing that look at your data, even if you don't have everything, you don't know what car they drive or what they prefer to go to Chipotle versus McDonald's. You're not going to know those things, even if your data doesn't have that. Use what you have. Okay, we have their email address. We know that they use Apple Mail with privacy protection on it. What can we do differently for that person, as an example?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so I would say that some of it comes from from just thinking about it, but then also different agencies that I've worked with that have that research background, or also just doing my own personal research.
Cool. We got a question from Deanna. She's asking, do you have any advice for marketing yourself to find work within the field? So personal branding.
Yay!
We talk about this constantly.
Yes. Great question, Deanna, and thank you. Advice for marketing yourself. So I've had a lot of opinions over the years about marketing yourself, and my advice has always been put it online. Whatever it is that you want to do, put it online and talk about it. Now make sure that you're actually doing the thing, first of all. I'll put that disclaimer. But I would just start with thinking, who do you want to see you doing marketing? Think about those people. If there are specific companies in mind, approach it like a marketer. So I want to get a new job. A great place for that would be LinkedIn. So talk on LinkedIn about the different marketing things that you have experience with. I started a zillion years ago with personal branding on LinkedIn. I was posting every day and posting, hey, I got this request from a client. We talked about this thing, and this is what we came to, and or even just an event that I went to or helped organize. Take a picture of it. Say, hey, we had a great time doing this marketing thing. So showing up online in people's feeds, because honestly, that's where a lot of us are for a good portion of the day. But then also personal branding, I would say. Another thing is also think exactly what you want. So I've coached people that have come to me for looking for this exact advice. And a lot of it is, it's not enough to just say it online. You also need to think about, okay, what are the top 5 companies that you would want to be this title? Think about that. And then think about it as a marketing campaign. So maybe it's LinkedIn to start, and then you get your own personal website. If you're someone that has a graphic design, I think there was someone earlier that was saying fell for graphic design, didn't end up there, fell for it. So start finding job or things at work that you can get involved in that area, and then start talking about it, or share that information with a friend on social media as an example. Because that's something that more and more recruiters are checking. There are a lot of jobs that you can apply for on LinkedIn, but recruiters more often than not, they're looking at your LinkedIn the second you apply. Maybe not the second, because I know that on LinkedIn you get a lot of job applications, but they're looking at your LinkedIn to see, what is this person saying? What does their feed look like? Do they have the experience we're looking for based on the application? So since they're already in there, the recruiters, the marketing people that are at the companies you want to work with, that's a great channel to start with.
Emily, I wanted to add to that because I get a sense that, similar to you and I, there are a lot of budding freelancers in the chat.
Oh.
And I can speak to the quality of Emily's work firsthand. It's awesome. She's fantastic. But in addition to everything that she said, one of the best things that you can do to market yourself is to make good work. Your work has to be good. And if it's really good, it speaks for itself. So much so that you don't have to do a whole lot of marketing, because your customers do it for you.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about, do you have a friend that's already doing what you want to do? Reach out to them and see, maybe we can talk about what we do together online, or do you have any tips? But yeah, freelancing is a fun way. I would say fun because no joke. So I have very vivid memories of the first time I do something. First time I freelanced, I decided that I was going to write copy for 14 websites for $100. That was 2008. That was 2008. And that was my first marketing job. And I freaking loved it. Today, you ask me to write 14 websites for $100 for anything, I'd be like, I don't know if I can do that. Let's start with one and let's build from there and see if that 14 is really what we need to do. But sometimes freelance is how you get that first taste of that experience. So I would encourage anybody there are a lot of companies out there that are looking for those marketing ninjas, or also those experimental marketers. So for me, I was jumping from more operational general roles, and I was like, you know what? I have all of these skills, but I really need to jump into digital like head first if I'm going to keep with the trends and keep doing cool work, keep doing fun work. Because I noticed that a lot of the marketing work and return was coming from the digital area. And I was like, okay, I need to get in on this. So looking even just within, okay, I want more experience doing email marketing, or I want to do graphic design, but my current role isn't allowing me to do that for whatever reason, not a good or bad thing. See what's out there. I got my start. It's Craigslist.
Oh my.
Send me a paper check. Things have changed way since then. But I also, Upwork is where I got a lot of my, when I was like, okay, now I'm really going to try and do this, because I was in a role that was focused heavily on print. And to get that digital experience, I knew that I needed to somewhat kind of find that experience in my own way. It also helped to volunteer for different groups too, because then you can say, oh yeah, I can design. See, everybody's always looking for somebody that's like, yeah, I'll just design that thing for you, or I'll put it up on a page. So
were you able to do Upwork full time? Did you do Upwork full time when you did Upwork?
Great question, Susanna. No, I did Upwork at night and on weekends, but for the most part. And it was really, I would say my marketing worked too well for that, because then I got into a place where I was looking at the scope of work and the work that I was doing. I'm like, this is easily one person's full job, if not more. So I would just caution, are you looking to do full-time on Upwork, or? Sorry, Savannah.
I'm a contractor, but the position that I found was on Upwork, and I'm just trying to fill the gaps a little bit with Upwork, and it's been kind of challenging because there's a lot of competition. It's a lot of people who are trying to go for the same jobs, just, you know, for logo design and stuff. So yeah, I've kind of reinvented the wheel a little bit several times, trying to figure out the best way to market myself on Upwork. So I was just curious, like, what your experience was with it. I think it's a really great tool and a really great resource, but I've just found it a little bit challenging to navigate as somebody who's attempting to do freelancing in that way. So,
okay, interesting, cool. Now, I would say when I got started on Upwork, it was probably a much different beast than it is now with the pandemic, and not logo design. I was content mostly in the digital space. So I could see that. There's another, I would say Upwork can fill the gaps. If you're finding competition, I know that at one point you were able to pay, I think it was $10 a month to see the range of what they were expecting to pay for that marketing request thing. And that was something that was really worthwhile. And it can also show you how many applications they're getting. So then I wouldn't waste my time or waste my great pitch on something that I knew that I wasn't going to get anyway. So I did pay for that out of pocket, but it was just something that was important. I'm sure it's maybe more expensive now, or there's a new membership kind of configuration, but I would look into maybe trying to see if you are able to see the ranges. And then I would also say, if you're not on Fiverr, I haven't used Fiverr myself, but I do know some freelancers that have been able to know margins. Like, don't go on Fiverr. Don't go on Fiverr? Really?
No.
Okay.
It waters down the quality of the design medium, and you're basically offering your high quality services for bottom barrel pricing. Now, if you have an established profile on Fiverr, that might be a little bit different. But for a lot of people starting out, especially after school, they're at the bottom of the list. So like you could make a logo that you could typically charge like $300 for. You may put $300 worth of time into a logo, but only be able to sell it for, I don't know, $50 on Fiverr. So yeah, so you'd be doing yourself a huge disservice there.
Okay.
Anyway, Emily, thank you so much. Your information was fantastic. I'm so glad that you kicked off momentum for us. And if any of you have other questions for Emily, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. And I think we're still on deck to have you do the practicum, right?
Yeah, I'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, so you'll see her again in 3 weeks, and you'll open the book and you'll close the book on the marketing track for momentum for us. So thank you again. And you're welcome to stay on and hang out. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and roll into my presentation. And that way we'll have time for the big panel session at the end.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.